An exciting part of our 2016 winter travels was the 3-week visit we made to Cuba. Like most visitors, we arrived in Havana, a crumbling yet still vibrant city of over 2 million people. New challenges will face the country and its people, with Cuba soon to become a desired tourist destination. It's easy to feel time-warped, as the city's streets and architecture have not been upgraded since the revolution in 1959, nor have many of the cars been upgraded that ply the streets either privately or as taxis. We chose to stay in the leafy residential area of Vedado, where many of the private homes and apartment buildings are now casa particulares, with reasonably priced rooms for travelers like ourselves. Flag down any of the 1950s vintage cars along the street and this colectivo will pick you up if there is room. Driving along the Malecon, the city's seafront, can be quite dramatic if it is not closed due to overly aggressive wave action. The area of Havana Vieja, as the Old City is called, is the most historic area to visit. The Baroque-style cathedral, finished in 1787, is one of the oldest in the Americas. We visited during Sunday services, enjoying the art and architecture as much as the music and the ceremony. It was interesting to compare a 1930 photo of arches on the plaza with the reconstruction work that is going on inside the same building today. I'm sure it will look like the splendid central courtyard of the City Museum with its gardens and marble statue of Christopher Columbus one day. We liked the antique horse-drawn carriages and the rooms of colonial period furniture on display at this museum. In the Old City, restaurants can be found in some unlikely places. These private restaurants are called paladars and occupy some decidedly small spaces. Our favorite could serve maybe 20 people. Always crowded, the food was terrific. And so were the mojitos. Of course, there were street vendors selling food too. This chef was making churros right next to a window in the wall producing hot chocolate, great for the cool temperatures of that afternoon. Still hungry? How about a stand selling hot steamed corn on the cob? Or what about a freshly peeled orange? We found lots of intriguing things simply by walking on the mainly pedestrian streets, like a chess match that was in progress. Or 2 artists at work on the same painting. There were many local artisans selling their wares along the streets, and musicians seemed to be on every corner. The music generating impromptu dancing, perhaps to entertain the street sweeper. Havana is known for its splendid variety of architectural styles. Many landmark buildings have been beautifully restored, like the overly Baroque Grand Theater of Havana, or this 19th century hotel. And check out the early Art Deco of the Bacardi building. But many places are still works in progress, as you can see by this half-finished mercantile building. Restoration is slow work, and you wonder if buildings like this will fall down before it can be reconstructed. Second and third floors of apartment buildings are in bad shape too, making you question the livability of the occupied rooms below. Parks and green spaces and the many plazas provide outlets for hundreds of book stalls, or capture the youthful energy of soccer practice. You can turn your energy into salsa dancing lessons with a local band of musicians. Outdoor art abounds, whether it be the whimsically painted cats at the plaza or a long mural of historical figures made from colored sands. Local talent is easily displayed along many curbsides. Fidel Castro and Che Guevara are featured in many political murals, especially those that are near the Museum of the Revolution. This was a former presidential palace. The Tiffany-designed interior is currently being restored. A mural of the motor yacht Granma brought Fidel and his exiled supporters from Mexico back to Cuba, and this is a tank used in the Bay of Pigs battle. Sloppy Joe's bar looked to be a friendlier option nearby, and yes, Joe did invent that sloppy sandwich. The long bar served a variety of tropical rum drinks, and we ordered lunch, a monumental hamburger. Good thing it wasn't sloppy. Havana's harbor has long been protected by fortresses flanking each side of the entrance. The Castillo de la Real Fuerza in Havana Vieja dates back to the mid-1500s when it was built to guard the city against pirate attacks. Later, the Fortaleza de San Carlos de la Cabana was added to the city's defenses on the opposite side of the harbor. It is the largest fort in the Americas. It also served as a military prison and was the headquarters for Che Guevara during the revolution. Probably one thing that the revolution did not change was the upbeat music of Cuba. It was everywhere and very engaging. After 5 days of city tourism, we boarded a long-distance bus to head into Cuba's countryside. Traffic was generally sparse, truckloads of sugarcane and horse carts swerving to avoid numerous potholes in the road. The Valley of Viñales is one of Cuba's most magnificent natural settings. The little town of the same name thrives on tourism, albeit on a different scale than Havana. The daily tourist trinket market was in full swing with items featuring Viñales' main product, tobacco and cigars. Most of the houses in Viñales have been turned into casa particulars, clean rooms to rent in private premises with very few vacancies. Likewise, the restaurants were thriving with tourist business too. Viñales was one of the few places that had well-stocked small supermarkets, catering mostly to the tourist trade. I mean, water and Pringles, what more does one need? More typically, local markets had bare shelves and provided just the government-subsidized necessities like rice, beans, eggs, and oil. Fresh produce was largely sold from street carts or at the sparsely supplied central market. We joined a walking tour one morning that led us quickly through town and into the agricultural area of dramatic rocky hillsides where traditional tobacco-growing farms nestled serenely under the limestone cliffs. Fields here are small, so machinery is not effective, as are oxen with hand plows. Maybe the farmer could even coax a tourist into doing his hard work instead. It was interesting to compare tobacco harvesting methods to those we know in Ohio. The stalks are cut in small sections. These are set atop long poles. Then the poles of tobacco leaves are carted away to the barns and left outside to wilt before being hung up on the racks inside the barns to dry. All of this tobacco is used for making cigars. We were invited into the farmhouse, passing through the kitchen, which had both gas stove cooking and the more traditional wood fire stove. There are 3 components to a cigar. Take the inner core and tightly wrap into an inner leaf. Trim this and then wrap again with a carefully selected outer leaf. Ready to fire up. Al, who does not smoke at all, had a try as well. Our walk continued past other farm holdings in the area where sugar cane was growing. Another field held taro roots, and yet another an abundance of pineapples. There was the usual assortment of farm animals, and we learned about the music tree. Maracas are made from this fruit. We spied a tree rat, Cuba's largest indigenous mammal. Hop-on, hop-off tour buses gave us easy access to Viñales' primary tourist attractions in the area. The Cave of the Indians was an ancient dwelling place. Crowded but well-lit paths terminate at an underground river. The boats take you back into the national park. Wandering onward, we stopped for a few days in Cienfuegos. Founded in 1819 by the French rather than the Spanish, gives a different flavor architecturally to this city. Horse cart taxis were always busy, and the horses knew just where to move for the next load up. We chose a pedicab to drive us down Punta Gorda, a narrow peninsula stretching into the natural harbor of Cienfuegos. This was Cienfuegos' old upper-class neighborhood of wealthy sugar merchants. It still has remarkable homes looking like palaces. The Palacio de Valle, now a restaurant, displays overabundance of decoration that was popular back in the early 1900s. The once exclusive yacht club now offers variety of nautical excursions, keeps the local sailing active, and provides berths for visiting yachts. A winding road through cane fields and verdant forests took us to the protected area of El Nicho. We hiked well-tended paths, pausing to examine a curious curly-tailed lizard before reaching the first of many of the national park's waterfalls. The many-layered cascades invited hikers to splash around in the lower pools. Al decided to launch himself over the falls into the bubbling clear waters below. This was followed by lunch at a very local restaurant and was the perfect finish for the day. Trinidad is a well-preserved Spanish colonial settlement that has become a popular tourist magnet. Deservedly so, as this UNESCO World Heritage City has much to offer. The Iglesia Parroquial de la Santísimo de Trinidad sits at the head of the Plaza Mayor and provides the best vantage spot to view the lovely sunsets. We joined locals and tourists alike, climbing up the steps leading to the Casa de la Música to settle down with a cold beer, or yet another mojito, and listen to the salsa band of the day. Salsa music is classic Cubano. Indeed, I think Cubans are born with this music in their blood, and I think they are born knowing how to dance the salsa. Again, we lived in rooms in casa particulars, although the casas here were sometimes hard to spot on the quiet cobblestone streets. Ours had an art shop in the front that we passed through to get to our room upstairs. The fantastic Municipal Museum is housed in a grandiose mansion, formerly belonging to a sugar estate baron. Although the stylish decoration of the room spoke loudly about his wealth, it was a little hard to visualize people actually living in this house. One morning, we hopped aboard a little tourist train headed for the Valle de los Ingenios. We passed through the residential outskirts of town and into the still verdant valleys that contain dozens of sugar mill ruins and the old haciendas of slave traders. Today, these historic sites are overburdened with vendors selling locally produced wares. At least you could watch the women as they worked on the lovely embroidered cloths that are famous in this area. Although there were plenty of restaurants in Trinidad, in most cases we found the food to be uninspiring. Sometimes feeling it was better to grab a fresh pulled pork sandwich from the street vendor's cart. The clip-clop of horse hoofs was common in Trinidad, with horses as numerous as taxis and better suited to operate in the narrow streets. Of course, even a horse cart can have a flat tire. We were watching a game of dominoes when we realized we were right in front of a cigar factory. About 30 people were working in this factory, each one producing 250 hand-rolled cigars a day. The method and technique was much the same as what we saw at the farm, except that the initial roll was put into a press for several minutes. I tried my hand at it. Well, even with a lot of help, it was not easy. The finished cigars are wrapped up in bundles that are already tax stamped for delivery. We had not had very warm weather, but did pick a great day for some sun, sand, and swimming at Playa Ancon, the beautiful beach near Trinidad. With our time in Trinidad coming to an end, we caught one last sunset and spiced it up with the music of yet another band. We had another beer and vowed that the next time we came to Trinidad, we would have certainly learned how to salsa. In Santa Clara, as with other cities in Cuba, it is usually the main plaza that has the Wi-Fi signal. The plaza is generally surrounded by important buildings and a church of note. Geographically, Santa Clara is at the center of Cuba, and the city is quite spread out. Getting around in a horse cart taxi was a great option for us. Our Casa Particular was the nicest we had in Cuba, the antiquities in the house rivaling the local museum. These antiques carried over into our room at the end of a tropical garden patio. Too soon, it was time to return to Havana before leaving Cuba. It had been a splendid 3 weeks. We loved the people, the contrasts, the history, the arts, the natural beauty, the music, and the everyday life. So many memories for us to continue. For sure, we will return for another visit.